starting in the middle. And first through the small print, which is a quotation from the Quran. So good morning everyone.
Good morning.
In the darkness that exists in some places this time of the year, in the winter, and the darkness that exists all around us, with all the cruelty and the threats. So we have now the light of Chanuka, called the principle, a little bit of light can drive away a lot of darkness. But you can't really remove darkness with weapons, with sticks and stones, or with guns and weapons, conventional, non-conventional. You can only remove darkness with the light. And we see today the fulfillment of what it says in the prophets, darkness covers this globe, and a misty atmosphere, all the nations. But upon you, the people of Israel, the light of Hashem shines, and also the light of Chanuka. And I'll start, first of all, with a personal recollection when I was a young boy. It's a young boy, beginning of the Nazi war against morality, at a time when I lived in England, even during the Blitz, and England was alone in its battle against the evils of the Nazi regime. This is, I think, in 1940. And around Chanuka time, Churchill made a speech. In that speech, as a quote, he said, at this time we have to take courage from the Maccabeans, who fought against the evil Greco-Syrians who were trying to enforce their idolatrous and corrupt lifestyle upon the Jewish people. So it says, the book of the Maccabees, that Yehuda Maccabi got up and he said that even if all others will go after the ways of the Greeks, yet will I and all those who join me, we will fight for our faith and for our land. And he said, so Churchill said, if they wouldn't have had that battle, and the Greeks would have swamped the Jewish people and the state of Judea with their corrupt immorality and idolatry and their cruelty, he said, then we would not have the benefit, say, of Christianity, say, of Judaism, and even on the ethical aspects of the Muslims. Neither would there be any moral civilization left in this world. And so today as well, it said, we in Britain, we have to battle against the evils. I think it's really recorded, this speech. I saw it once, a couple of times in different texts and books. So it's an even more difficult situation today. So we have to go back to the knowledge, I think, which all of you possess of the Hasmonean battles, which caused Judaism to survive, and which teaches us to bring the light of true morality to the rest of the world. We find that in the Talmud there is not so much reference to the victories of the Hasmoneans. For this there are a number of reasons. I'm sure all of you know about this, because the Hasmonean dynasty, unfortunately, did not live up to its founders, who were on a very high level. And therefore this brings us to go more deeply into the inner light of Chanuka. And we begin with a quotation from the Tractate Shabbat, which deals in the second chapter with the lights of Shabbat, how Shabbat brings light, and then it brings kindling the lights of Chanuka. So there's a very ancient source brought on page 21b in Talmud Shabbat, which asks the question, My Chanuka, following the text here, in the middle of the page, My Chanuka, what is Chanuka? How is Chanuka defined? The Tun Rabbanon. This comes from the most ancient recorded text of the oral tradition, known as Megillat Tanit. On the 25th of Kislev, Yom Chanukah, Tamli'inum. There are 8 days of Chanukah. What's the significance of celebrating Chanukah for 8 days? Shekshenichnasu Ovdei Kochovim Leheichal, Tamei. When the idolaters entered into the temple itself, and they made it impure, they put up idols in the temple. And they made all the oils, well, let's see, they as Timu, Leheichal, Keshenichnu Orechim Leheichal, Timu, should be Timu Kol Hashmanim Shebeichal. They made all the oil in the temple impure. When the kingly dynasty of the House of the Hasmoneans became strong, which is described in many Jewish and non-Jewish historical records, Venitzchum, and they were victorious. Bodku, they made a search where they could find pure oil. They only found one sealed jar of oil, which was placed before Tamoshel Kohen Gadol with the seal of the high priest. And therefore that was a record find, because it was a guarantee it was pure. It's only enough to kindle the menorah for one night. Nothing less. So a miracle occurred with it, and they were able to kindle from it for 8 days. That's Chanuka. And Rashi comments on this. What's the question by Chanuka? On the basis of which miracle to the sages instituted Chanuka. Now, there were so many miracles which are recorded also briefly in the additional prayer we say on these 8 days of Hanukkah. When did we say it? In the blessing of the Amidah, which deals with thanksgiving, and the blessing after meals, which deals with thanksgiving. One is with Modim, the other not Lecha Hashem Lokeinu. So when we express thanks to Hashem on Hanukkah, we also mention special thanksgiving for the miracles of Chanuka, Alanissim, Alapokan. And there, even in the introduction, how it's introduced on the miracle and on what else? And on the wars. Alamilchamot.
Al-Hanissim, we say this?
Alanissim. The Alanissim. Alanissim, the Alapokan. Pokan means the way in which we were saved. Physically saved. I mean, there were Jews who assimilated, and even they helped the Greeks, unfortunately. And many of them joined the idolatry and they joined the sports which were involved with immorality. And if they didn't mind eating treifa food, some Jews mityavnim, but the core of loyalists to the faith of Am Yisrael and also the country went together, were the Chashmonaim and their followers. And therefore we give thanks and we thank Hashem for all the fantastic miracles. And there's no direct mention of the miracle of the Pachshel Shemen, or the one jug of miraculous oil. That's not mentioned. So here, my Chanukah. See, my Chanukah, in other words, what's the main symbolic celebration of Chanukah?
The light.
It's for the miracle of the light. But we have to thank Hashem. What's more important? Thank Hashem for saving the people and saving the Chashmonaim.
Maybe it was the fact that they found the oil. That's what helped save the people. Maybe they go together.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, let's now we'll see the inner light. We'll try to understand this. And by the way, before I go now to the explanation here of the Maharal of Prague, I would say that the inspiration of the inner significance of the mitzvot, as it's elaborated by the greatest teachers of Hasidut and the greatest teachers of Musar, both schools of thought, they base it a great deal upon the Maharal. For the Maharal, he based himself in turn on earlier sources, also there are Yizal, but the language of the Zohar and also of the Chaim Vital, the disciple of Rizal who gave on his works, is a Kabbalistic language and can't so easily be adopted to make it really meaningful to the average person. But the Maharal, he hints at the sources of this Hamaskal Yavin. He often says, person who really think deeply in his mind, he'll understand what I'm referring to. But he puts it in a much simpler form, which made it possible for the greatest thinkers in Hasidut, amongst which we can count Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen, one of the greatest. I'm saying deeper thinkers. Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen, one of the greatest, And another great one is the Sfas Emes. You know, the Sfas Emes was a great Talmudist, but he also was very great in this until today. And certainly also the Bali Musa. They extended, like more recently, where the great thinker, the Yitzchak Hutner, the Shiva Bach Yitzchak on his name, and he analyzed, went deep into understanding the Maharal. And of Dessler, one of the greatest. So therefore, it's worthwhile for you to take this text, which you're working on, bit by bit, and even to make notes on it, and then afterwards you'll be able to teach other people. It's very inspiring. So here it says, the Greeks went into the Heichal. Now, do you know what is the Heichal? It's a general word for the temple, but it's also a more particular section of the temple. The temple is the Beit HaMikdash. So Beit HaMikdash basically was divided into three major parts. And today, if you go in the tunnel all the way along under the Kotel, so you find a sign where it says Mul HaAzara. This is opposite the courtyard. It might even give you Mul Ezrat Nashim. First was the women's courtyard. Then Ezrat Yisrael, the men's courtyard, was the courtyard. And then comes the Ezrat Kohanim. Yeah. This is all part of the Azara, courtyard of the Kohanim. And the courtyard of the Kohanim was the place of what? Do you know? Of the altar, the major altar. The Mizbeach, the big Mizbeach, was in the courtyard. Then came the Heichal. The Heichal contained three vessels. What were they? Hadahai Kedusha. It says Mula Heichal. What did it contain?
The Ark?
No. What did it contain? It contained the menorah and the table of showbread. And in the middle was the Mizbeach HaPnimi, the inner golden altar, on which there were no animals brought on that altar. And what was brought on that altar? The Ketoret, the spice offering. And then there was the Kodesh Kodesh. The Heichal was also called the Kodesh. Then came the Kodesh Kodashim, the Holy of Holies. And what was that? What was contained there?
That was the Ark.
The Ark with the Kruvim, Ark with the cherub. So the question is, okay, so the Greeks made everything impure, including the Heichal. That's why it says, when they entered the Heichal, they made everything there impure. And the oil was also impure. So V'im Tomah, we should follow the text. Please let everybody have a copy. Middle of the page. V'im Tomah, V'chi b'shvil shenazlem neis ba'adlaka, V'lo hayazeh rak lasot mitzvah v'laka. So the question you can ask, what's Chanuka? He said, on account of the fact there was a miracle that they had to fulfill now the mitzvah when they tried to purify the temple, also to kindle the menorah. Because of this, Hayukovim, Chanuka. Because of that, they fixed the festival of Chanuka. Said, it not doesn't sound logical. Surely, he said, that this miracle didn't make any difference to anyone. I mean, the question which he answered briefly is a manifold question. First of all, And if they would have only kindled the menorah one night, and then they had to wait to get pure oil, it would take them another 8 days, okay? Wait another 8 days. And everything was impure. So they start the other aspects of the divine service of the temple took some time, but all the offerings, they also had to wait to let them get everything ready. So why just this? And what about V'chol neit shechayv lodot u'lahalel u'b'shvil hatzalato? Surely, all the miracles, we have to give thanks for them. What about the miracles that the people saved? That beforehand, many were cruelly butchered and killed away. And Hashem was the one who gave strength to the small army, which is described in the Tefillah even. You, Hashem, what did you do? You gave over the strong hands of the weak, the many in the hands of the poor, and the wicked one in the hands of the righteous. And that was a life-saving situation for the whole Jewish people. And as we said before, the whole of mankind. So what? That doesn't need a celebration. Just this miracle of the lights, which made no difference to anybody. And there's other reasons, which the Maharal doesn't mention, but everybody asks the question. There's a principle, if everything is impure, and also the people are impure, the Kohanim, Am Yisrael, you can tumahut v'betzibur. Then we say, look aside from impurity. And you can, in certain circumstances, you can use oil which is not pure.
How did they know that everything was impure? Was there any specific sign?
Well, yes, all the idolaters contaminate everything with idolatry, even the temple. And he says this, because of this one mitzvah, which they were able to fulfill for 7 days instead of 1 day, he said that I approve Kibba ala Nisim. When we describe the miracles in our prayers, extra prayer in the Birkat Hamazon and in the Amidah, Lo izkira neshel hanerot klal. There's no mention there of the miracle of the lights at all. Or is there?
I think
there's a phrase used there, V'idliku nerot b'chatzot kodshecha. They kindled lights in your holy courtyards. But that was not this miracle. Because your holy courtyard means the courtyards of Yerushalayim. They lit them up. Or maybe it means the courtyards of the temple, but the menorah was not in the courtyard. It was in the Heichal, which is not part of it. Chatzeh is like Azara. As they say, if you go under the kotel, it's mul ha'azara and then mul ha'heichal. Heichal is a high level of holy place than the chatzrot. V'idliku ner chatzot shechu just means as a part of the celebration of the time. They were able to light up all holy courtyards in Yerushalayim, both in the temple, outside the temple. Yeah.
Could this be used sort of as a spiritual metaphor if you think about that what was in the courtyard, where the people were in the courtyard? Yeah. So you're not necessarily lighting up an area, you're lighting up the people.
Anyway, so how does he answer it?
Shall I give an idea?
Man, if you say it in a loud voice.
Okay, so the righteous in the hands of the wicked, the many in the hands of the few.
No. The wicked in the hands of the righteous.
The wicked in the hands of the righteous.
The many in the hands of
the few. And the powerful in the hands of the weak.
That's right. They came with.
We see this in sports and in lots of other things, which sometimes the number 100 in the world beats the number 1 in the world. So that happens. But when it comes to science, oil quantity, and instead of 1 day, it's 7 days. Can you see the difference?
Okay.
It doesn't answer.
The truth is, I have a share, you'll find it if you want to on our website, I have a share, which I'm not repeating now. It's only of significance if you learned, at least read through the whole passage in the Talmud, which part of this we're quoting now. If you look through the whole passage, and you study also the history of Chanuka, if you have knowledge of it, I asked 36 difficult questions on how we celebrate Chanuka. And I answered them with one answer. If you want to, it's only significant if you learn the whole passage. So that's why I'm now choosing rather to concentrate upon, more literally, the deep insight of the Maharal. So he's answered like this. Just look inside. We're now near the bottom of page Dalet. ויש לומר שעיקר מה שקבעו ימי חנוכה, the main fixing of the festival of Chanuka, בשביל מה שנצחו את היוונים, is certainly because the victory of the Chashmoneim against the Greeks. רק, only, שלא היה נראה שהניצחון על זה נס. Because you don't have a proof, you don't see directly that the victory was through the miracles of Hashem, שעשה זה ולא מכוח גבורתם. You might say, like is written in many non-Jewish historical works, and also, even unfortunately, in the Jewish non-Torah community, who don't know the Torah, they think it's mikocham ugvuratam. It's got the strength of the Maccabeans, as is shown, for example, by the Maccabea, to commemorate the Maccabeans, and the use of the Hasmonean also to describe the great courage of the Maccabeans. And therefore sports organizations adopt the name of the Maccabeans. And the encouragement to increase your physical military strength, the people look at the Maccabeans as a model. And they say, especially in more recent times, that even changing, you see, mi kamocha, Be'edim Hashem is Maccabi, but they change it, Mi Kamocha Yehuda Maccabi. And even songs and poems glorifying the heroism of the Maccabean fighters which produced this victory. So people will say, who says it was Hashem? Yeah. So the sages wanted to make sure that people would recognize that all the miracles that occurred were after Rivam came from Hashem. That's why there was a supernatural miracle which came to the light of the menorah. Everyone should know that the war, the victory, was a miraculous one. I think we can apply this also to today. This is not just a question by Mimahem, it's a question by the Manazeh. How do we look at the miracle of the 6-day war? The people who were involved with it, they can't help saying it must have come from Hashem. But historians will say, no, I mean, you all know the famous episode in West Point where they train American army officers, where the lecture on military victories in the last 100 years, from which you can learn strategy, refused to mention the victory of Israel in the Six-Day War. Why did it refuse? It's got nothing to do with military strategy. It can only be explained as a miracle from Hashem, therefore I can't teach it. No way of teaching it. So, this is the same situation. But the truth is, if you were to read, as I did at the time, the mass media, straight after the Six-Day War, and the description of all different miracles, which brought even those who would never mention the name of Hashem to say, this indeed came only from Hashem, as was said by, at the time, by Rabin, by Dayan, by all the leaders. You said, they are your Masasha. But that's straight afterwards. We forget about it. Today, people don't commemorate this. They don't recognize that we are in the hands of Hashem. And these are all miracles, but still, it's what we call a hidden miracle. It's not, and it's something which is not entirely against nature. Therefore, because of this, Hashem created Nasa Nes with the menorah. So everyone knows the menorah is only oil for one night, clearly, and lasts for 8 days. That is a miracle you can see, and that's why we commemorate it. Ki ikar rishas hayvanim shetim v'taicha. But Dafka Nes, why was the nest therefore made with a menorah? Now, he doesn't mention this here, but I'll say this miracle is already foreseen in the 4th chapter of Zechariah, at the beginning of the Second Temple period, when there were also big obstacles, and he was shown the golden menorah. He didn't know what it was. What's the special significance? He knew there's a menorah going to be in the temple, and she'd made of gold. But this was an unusual menorah, which some was supplied with oil, which came from, was arranged to come directly from the trees into the bowl. In other words, it was really a miracle to do with the oil feeding the lamp. I said this, and then the angel told him, as we're going to read on Shabbos Chanuka, he told him that, what's the significance of this? The significance is that the priesthood and the kingship, the future, the people of Israel, is dependent upon the oil that's given to the menorah. But the menorah represents the light which the people of Israel should bring to the world, and Hashem Yisborach gives at all times from above special help that this aspect of the light will not become extinguished, even though there are efforts made to extinguish it, but it will continue forever. Even if it's only for a small part of the people who are ma'atim and who are weak, and a few of them, but those weak, few people, if they're tzaddikim, and they keep up the righteousness and the high level of morality, and they strive for saintliness, that will save not just the people of Israel, but the whole world. So therefore, it was already foreseen by Zechariah. But he adds something else. He says, the most wicked part of the of the Greeks was Timat HaHeichal, that they made the Heichal impure, which means the Greco-Syrians, they weren't like their predecessor, that was Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, he was the greatest genius ever produced from Greek civilization. He was a disciple of Aristotle, And he was so brilliant in wisdom that he truly is looking, as we know from different sources, for the source of all wisdom. At the same time, he was a real adventurer and explorer, and he was able to spread Hellenistic civilization all over the countries that he and his army conquered. And wherever he went, he tried to remove barbarism and introduce higher levels of civilization, of Hellenism, wherever he went. When he came to the border of Judea, to Shimon HaTzadik, who was the high priest and also the spiritual leader of the people, and to some extent all political, at least of the core that kept holiness. And he came towards him, and then, according to legends, he got off his white mare and straightened himself and says, why the ministers were concerned, what's he doing here? They said, well, the image of this person, it's been in front of me when I go and do battles. Anyway, he obviously had a huge impression of Shimon HaTzadik. And Shimon HaTzadik maybe explained to him, as it says, beginning of Pirkei Avos, the Torah is based, the world is based on Torah Avodah Chasadim. He told him. And then he told him, please, let us preserve our religious practices. And he agreed, they should all be accepted. They should not interfere in any way with the religion of the Jewish people. And even he went and had debates with the wisest men of Israel, which are recorded in the Gemara, where he asked some of the basic questions of Greek philosophy, and he was greatly impressed by the answers that were given to him, which seemed to fulfill what Aristotle had taught also, that the source of the Greek language comes from Kadmos, from the east, and maybe the source of wisdom also lies there. And he experienced this. So his successors, however, many of them, they didn't leave the idolatrous corrupt practices. And when the king was divided, the Ptolemies and the Seleucids, the Ptolemies that they sent in Egypt, they were very much more in favor of following Alexander the Great in many ways. That's why Alexandria became a major center where Jews could live freely, even to the extent, so freely, that some of them also assimilated to Greek ideas. On the other hand, many, you might think a majority, different periods, remained loyal to the Torah. We have from at the time of Philo of Alexandria, who explained the Torah in Greek, and there in the library they had the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation, and they were in favor of human beings finding out about the Tanakh. But in Eretz Israel, they had the Seleucids, and the Seleucids, they did not follow Alexander. Alexander has become a Jewish name because of the way in which Alexander the Great gave complete freedom of religion to the Jewish people. Recognize this. But the other Seleucids, they, now go back to the Maharal, they were ones who spread impurity everywhere, but especially even the temple, and even the Heichal, which is the place of holiness. And what is the Heichal? Torah, Avodah, U'Midat Chasadim. Because what's the menorah represent?
Torah.
The light of Torah. And the table of showbread, which was 12 loaves, to provide, the people of Israel have to know, you have to provide food for all the tribes of Israel. That's the purpose, that's the Kohen have to teach that, Chesed, U'Midat Chasadim. And what's the Ketoret? Avodah. The Ketoret is the Kesher, the bond that connected with Hashem. And exactly this Torah, Avodah, U'Midat Chasadim, which Shimon HaTzadik is the basis of the Olam, which probably he taught this to Alexander the Great. Alexander he recognized this must be the basis. That's how you can make progress. I'll just tell you an episode, personal episode, which happened at the Bar Mitzvah. My grandson had just got married a few weeks ago. So his Bar Mitzvah took place in an army base, where my son was the chaplain. I think it was called Fort Bragg, I'm not sure. You may have forgot, it was in so many different places. Anyway, we were there also at the time, and so at the Bar Mitzvah, all the chaplains of that army base participated in the Bar Mitzvah. They all came, Christians and Muslim chaplains together. You've been together with some chaplains, you know?
Yeah.
No problem. Okay. So my son told me that after the service, they would like a discussion with me, ask us questions. So the senior chaplain there, it's just going into retirement. To retire, senior chaplain of the base, of the American Army, going to retirement. So he said, his question was like this. He said, and I'm about to go to retirement and I have a problem. What should I do? So it's because in the army I was always busy and so on. And I still want to be busy in many ways, but what should you know about? And they told me, your son of Ron, had actually taught us something already. He taught us the 3 principles of Torah, Avodah, Milut, Chasadim. How do you apply this to us? This is also, Torah means to learn from our religious texts, as all of us do, how to bring human beings to a high level of the awareness of God. Whichever way we interpret it. I mean, the chaplaincy, they work together in peace. There's the Muslim interpretation, there's the Christian interpretation, different groups, and the Jewish interpretation. We try to work together. That's when every army base, they have a place of divine service for each group. And each chaplain conducts the services. And each chaplain, they help the others as well. And my son, he had often to deal at certain times, he had to deal with non-Jews, and to help them in their social and personal problems. Because every chaplain's got to be a counselor. Anyway, he said, your son, he taught us all the 3 areas where we have to work. One area is avodah, divine service, how to make a connection with God. And as we know, the American Army's motto is, for God, for my God, and for my country. And my God comes first, is what the President of America said to my son when we had a blessing on him. They said, you know, our motto is my God, and my country, and my God comes first. That's the American approach. It comes first. Whichever way you come to God, but you've got to always have some aspect of direction. Of who are you serving? Because if you're not serving anybody else, you just have no purpose in life ultimately. So that's God. Then you have to deal with, that's avodah. You have to deal with Torah. What's Torah? Torah means to perfect your character and your behavior. That's what it means for the whole world. The whole world was given Torah B'nai Noach. A minimum of morality. Yeah? Whatever your God is, you're not allowed to murder, you're not allowed to commit adultery, you're not allowed to steal, you shouldn't tell lies, and if possible you shouldn't covet either. That's a very high level, not to covet. But you'll come to it. That is the second part of the 10 Commandments, which apply to all mankind. So that's the Torah we have to teach. Which every religion will belong to. And if we're going to have a religion that says you've got to murder, I'm sorry, that's the opposite of religion. If any chaplain says, any chaplain in America would belong to Daesh, he's a Muslim, believes it, they'd certainly arrest him, without a doubt. And that's civilization. So that's Torah. And Milut Chasadim. The chaplain has to do kindness wherever you go. So this is, she's taught us that. My question is, how can I continue these things when I'm already getting into retirement? So I had to answer that. So I'm not telling you the answer, but I explained to him how there's many different ways. Wherever you are, whatever area you're in, you can work on these three things. Even you don't have, battalions of soldiers to give them chizuk, give them strength, for them to go to Korea, or for them to go to Afghanistan, or go to Iraq in those times. So it was quite amazing to find a person teach that. So it's interesting. I'm saying this now. Shimon al-Tzaddik, even the sages say that on the verse in the end of Vayikra, where it says, even if Am Yisrael had to go into Galut and be under servitude, but I will never forsake them, Hashem says. I'm not going to allow the people Israel ever to be destroyed. And the example is I brought them Shimon al-Tzaddik in the time of the Greeks to save Am Yisrael. So what did Shimon al-Tzaddik say? Those three principles. And which is the physical symbol of these three? In the Heichal. That's called the Heichal. And the Greeks contaminated those three principles. Because they said, no, we must not, we've got to worship the idols. No, we don't believe in having a spiritual God, no, because they were like real idolaters, many of them. And they executed, the story, they tried to get all the Jews to worship physical idols. And then they were morally corrupt. And also, they gave terrible taxation to the people under their rule and took the money for themselves. I mean, in other words, there was exploitation of the weak to take away any aspect of kindness from their lifestyle. So this was a timur tahechal. So therefore, that's why it uses this concept. They made even the heichal impure. V'chein amru b'chol makom. If now we carry on here in the second column, top of the second column, it says b'chol makom avnei b'sper shikts anshi avam, that the men of Greece, they contaminated the stones of the altar. That means the whole temple. Because they had a special desire to transform the temple into a place of worship of the Greek gods. Want to destroy worship of Hashem. Hashem saw how these wicked people were making his temple impure, but therefore he gave special strength to Hashmonai and his sons who were Kohanim. Why did Hashem give them special strength? Because they were priests who go and do the divine service in the temple of Hashem. And the Greeks especially wanted to make the temple impure to replace the purity of the worship of the one God with the most physical and the most corrupt worship of aliens and and that's why specifically the priests were able to have the victory against the Greeks. Okay, we'll have to stop at this point. But I'm very grateful that they encourage all the students to come to this year. I mean, it's deep and it will make Chanuka a different celebration. So I congratulate the three of you who've come, but let's make it from a Zoom to a minyan.
Amen.
Open that respect. Very grateful.